All right, look, there are a few basic questions, and I'll throw it back to you repeatedly. I think I can set this up pretty well. And then, you can start for yourself deciding. It doesn't matter if you're that much of a college football fan or not. I mean, we're really at a point of management issues. And so you can decide for yourself, which one of these things you think is practical and reasonable or unreasonable. So answer however you would like. I think the issues are pretty clear. Now, I'm going to make them clear. One, this particular move shocks the industry so much, the industry says that's it, and it fixes itself. Two, nothing changes at all. Noise is made, and it's being made. Nothing changes at all. Or three, and I'll bet you this isn't talked about much, but I will introduce it because I think it is, sooner or later, will be very much on the table. A line is drawn within the industry. And the line is drawn so clearly, a strike is in play. A strike. I said that. Yes. I think it'll be an issue. I do. So there you go. There's three things you can pick out. If you want to add to it, that's cool. College football has been hit with the industry of professional college football. Let's call it that because it tries to pretend that. The industry has been hit with an issue everyone had to see coming. That is, a star player sits out at the last minute trying to do the holdout thing when you try to gain the most leverage you can. The star player at a college program, a blue blood program in a blue blood conference, sits out and says, give me more money now or I'm leaving. He's sort of, depending on all the reports, blindsided his employer. Is that what we say now? What exactly is this? There's problem number one. Nobody knows. So I guess we'll just say his employer. And they've said, well, kid, we don't have the money. Good luck. Now, none of this is all that surprising because I don't think this will be the last mercenary money play by a big name player. I don't think this is the last by any stretch. If it works for him, I'll bet you right now there'll be more of it. The industry, of course, has no one to blame but itself and the ultra-rich programs, which I've laid out countless times from day one of this circus act they pretend to call NIL. I don't know how many different ways I'm going to say I told you. Now I'm going to say I told you that somebody's going to have to draw a line and somebody is going to have to talk about a strike. Yeah. Okay, his name is Nico Lamaliava. From this moment on, he's Nico. And Nico is the starting quarterback and a good one. Very good one. I mean, not great, but he's good, really good. He's a starter. For a Tennessee program that went to the playoffs last year. They're expected to make the playoff again and be among one of the best 3 to 4 teams in the SEC. And he's probably one of the best 4 quarterbacks in the SEC. Here's what is reported. Nico told his offensive coordinator late Friday night that he's in the process of filling out his paperwork and plan to enter the transfer portal when it opens on Wednesday. In other words, Nico blindsided them with his letter of resignation. And the coaching staff and other members had been trying to reach him, reportedly, and his representatives, which is funny to say. But they couldn't get a hold of him. They couldn't get a hold of them. He had missed practices and meetings earlier on Friday. So Nico went AWOL. The team representing him said, go AWOL. Don't answer the calls. They had been trying to negotiate back and forth. This is all done so horribly. It's so amateurish. It's amateurish. Everyone involved is amateurish. Trying to act like you're a pro. But they have been trying to negotiate a deal with this kid, Nico, for some time. They were aware, reportedly, Tennessee was aware that he and his representatives had reached out to at least one other school. Now, remember the rich of the riches. These are the programs run by sugar daddies. Okay? They call all the shots. They own all the cards. They have all the money, and they'll spend it. So Nico's team isn't stupid. Nico's team is saying, forget these southern schools, man. There's no money here. Let's go call the people that have the money. Well, check Texas off. They have the most, but check them off. They've got a star quarterback. They're not in the market. And they went down the list, and they had contacted Oregon. What they want is they want Nico to get paid $4 million. Tennessee again said, man, we're out. We're tapped out. He'd been making $2 million and some change, and he wanted to double his salary. And we could debate all day whether or not this kid had put up good enough numbers to double his salary. I would argue with you, heck no. I mean, what do you have, 2,700 yards or something like that? But, value is, let's be fair, value is what someone is willing to pay. So you might as well ask. They asked, and the answer was no, we're tapped out. He was making $2.4 million on a contract. It was reported to be $8 million when he signed it, but he started receiving payments when he was in high school. Get ready for more of this. This is the norm, not an exception. This is the norm. He started receiving payments when he was in high school, and the total value of the contract would have been closer to $10 million over the life of the deal, according to ESPN. Okay, there's a lot to say about that. You need to know, just for pay scale comparative purposes, he'd be making more than a second-round pick in the NFL. That's more money than a second-round pick would make, or it's very close to it. Now, they make more with all of these incentives, but remember the word I use, and I'm going to keep using this word probably for the next several months. This whole thing is amateurish and clunky, and everyone is looking foolish. You don't really know what you're doing. None of you. None of you know what you're doing. So he's asking for bottom-end first-round money, been getting it since he was in high school, even though he put up 2,600 yards passing, and he played the hardest card he could and just not take the calls and show up to work and turn into resignation, and he wanted to double his money. Or he had already had a promise that somebody else would double it. That may be true, too, which is a whole story by itself. Okay. Now, on one hand, just looking at this big picture, you could say, well, look, Nico's just trying to make the most money for himself. He's doing it, this is true, within the rules of a sport that has virtually no rules. He's under no obligation to play at Tennessee next year. There's no salary cap. He's allowed to transfer to the highest bidder if he wants. So all that's true. He could pick and choose these times a year that he wants to leave. He chose a time that would generate the most buzz. He chose a time that would generate the most controversy. He was tossing the hand grenade. They'd been fishing around for deals everywhere else. So I think this is going to be the norm, not the exception. The question is, how does the industry play this? That's going to be the billion-dollar question. So he wants more than 4 and some change. Tennessee doesn't have it. Here's his head coach, Josh Heupel, who showed up. He's probably somewhat surprised, but he didn't have a heck of a lot to say, nor should he.
I'm sure I'm going to get asked about this here in a second, so I'll address it on the front end. Today's landscape of college football is different than what it has been. It's unfortunate, just the situation and where we're at with Nico. I want to thank him for everything that he's done since he's gotten here. That's as a recruit to who he was as a player and how he competed inside of the building. And so a great appreciation for that side of it. Obviously, we're moving forward as a program without him. I said it to the guys today. There's no one that's bigger than the Power T, and that includes me. And they hear me say that a lot inside of that team room. Our coaches and staff, guys that have been here over the last 4 years, have rebuilt this program, and it's built to win. And I say that as we're moving forward from today, too. This program's ready to go win next fall, and as a program. Since we've been here, we've won with a lot of different QBs, done it historically in my career with a lot of different QBs. Some of those guys have been older, some of them have been younger, but we'll have a quarterback that's ready to go win and help us compete for a championship.
Well, that was nice. No, you win with stars. You win with really good players, and he knows it. What else is he going to say? The guy's miffed for pretty good reason. But no. You win with stars, okay? That's just a fact of life. And as I've said and predicted many, many times, the reality in the South and reality of not the ultra-rich is starting to happen. When your program is not run by ultra-rich people who will spend whatever someone wants, you're going to be faced with issues like this. And I think the industry knows it. Okay, Paul Feinbaum, the audience, little I could tell, is outraged by this. Yeah, you probably should, because the most important sports in the South get used to this. Get used to it. Because there's more of this coming.
Paul, the floor is yours. What's your initial reaction to Tennessee's decision to essentially let Nico go?
I think the fans that I talked to yesterday afternoon, Shay, agree with this. It is the right call, and it's the right call because they've already been held hostage to a degree by Nico and his people. They went to bat for him about a year ago. They fought the NCAA, who wanted to rule him ineligible because of the recruiting. And they stood by and they kept his eligibility. They gave him a chance. And by the way, he helped to reward them by helping Tennessee get to the playoffs last year. But the bigger story here is beyond Nico. This is an inflection point in the history of college football. This is the first time in this NIL era that we have had a literal holdout. Happens every day in the NFL. It's never happened in college football. He was expected to make about $2.5 million. And while people are seeing their 401s crash right now, he wanted more than that, reportedly as much as $4 million. And Tennessee finally said, you know what, we're done. What's interesting is he's not that great. I talked to various sources around the SEC yesterday, and I said, tell me where he ranks out of the 16 quarterbacks in the SEC. They said somewhere between 6 and 8. Tennessee saw the same thing, and that's why he is no longer on the Tennessee roster this morning.
Yeah, all good points. No, NFL players don't hold out every day. That's not true. They have contracts. So let's again try to have some common sense, have some awareness of the businesses we're talking about here. They have agreements in the NFL. But yeah, I agree with everything else he said. I mean, I think this kid we're about to find out. I guess we'll find out, which I think is going to be a huge moment. I guess we're going to find out if he and somebody around him are overplaying their hand. Did he ask for too much? It sounds like it, but we'll see. That's part of the testing the market. The problem is how, this whole thing is set up. So I'll say a couple of things. The sport, you're not going to do it, are you? You're not going to fight the super rich, are you? Because sooner or later you're going to have to fight the super rich. You need some guardrails. You need some agreements, and you need these agreements and these basic templates of how you want to operate your fake business and pretend it's about advertising deals when it's not. This was so predictable. But that industry, you better figure out how you can get to a place where you're more like the NFL with agreements and incentive clauses and base packages and stuff like that. The longer you wait around, the more of this you're going to deal with. 2, this is the reality. I've been trying to tell people this is the reality for programs not named Texas, not named Ohio State, not named Michigan, not named SMU, not named USC, and not named Oregon. Oregon is funded by Phil Knight, who said, I am the swoosh. I will pay whatever I want to whoever I want. And probably A&M maybe to a degree. But, most programs don't have access to the working capital the ultra rich that I just mentioned have. And so that's what this kid is chasing. I mean, it's not that surprising. I don't even know if he'll get it or not. But, some people will say, no. I think most people will say, that's it. This is it. This industry has to hold its ground. It has to dare. I'll bring it up now because sooner or later they're going to have to come to this realization. Okay, I've been through strikes in the NFL. I can tell you what it looks like, how it works, what kind of the agreements there are, what kind of unreasonable expectations there are, where it backfires. That's where they're headed, and they better head there pretty quickly. But that's what they're going to have to force. That's what they're going to have to force. That is, as an industry, okay, the 50 of you that matter, the 50 of you that matter, the 60 of you that matter, it may not even be that much, have to say, we have to have terms, we have to have conditions, we have to have agreements. We can't operate like this. We can't operate by not knowing who's going to be where every Tuesday. You can't operate on weekly agreements. They don't have agreements. So you have to get there. And then when you get there, you have to be prepared to say, here is the way this industry is going to work. These are the way the agreements are going to work. You don't like it? Don't play. Don't play. Now you're going to think that's crazy. Let me tell you who doesn't have leverage. College football players. They don't. I know everyone thinks they do, and let me tell you why they don't. They need that industry. It is the best internship, now best paid internship that exists. Got it? Yeah. College football wants the stars, needs the stars because the coaches make money off the stars, and the rich guys who are jock sniffers, who are sugar daddies, want the skyboxes to watch the show. But as you work your way down the structure of the industry, those players go nowhere fast without that internship. And sooner or later, that industry has to call their bluff and say, sit, man. I dare you. Go ahead. Go try out for the Bengals. Go ahead. There's 54 jobs out there, 54 times 32. Most of you will never see the light of day of an NFL agreement. So you go ahead. Strike. Walk. Or else we got to come to terms. I think that's the reality. You can say, no, that's crazy, Jeff. I don't believe you. Okay. Well, just keep playing this game then. Both of them want each other, need each other. It's an industry. It's a slimy industry that just feeds off of, this kind of chaos. And there's so many people trying to make a bunch of money and controlling it. You do have this chaos. But really, in the end, those guys, most of whom have no business being in college, most of whom will never see a college degree. Now, some of them may have made some money. Nico may have made some money, but somebody probably took 40% of it. That's what we're hearing is this doesn't work like the NFL. So those guys at the end, if you call them out, they need that paid internship badly. Because the real future, the real agreements, the real rich payday is getting 4 and 5 year guaranteed contracts in the NFL and then getting a second one. So that's where it's going to have to go. And no, they will not strike. They won't. This guy will be an interesting case study, but the industry has to do exactly what I've seen in the NFL and been through in the NFL, and that is, here are the terms, here's the deal. The players, you can get together and you can push back, and then we're going to have to find common ground. That's where it's going to have to go. Now, the question there, why you say, yeah, I haven't thought of that. Okay, the problem with that, okay, it'd be like, And I was in a strike in the NFL, and the players are underpaid still. I know it's hard to believe that. They are. They really should be making more money than they do. But they've, one of the things that came out of the strike is their ability, and they had better leadership. They've had real good management the past few years, the Players Association. But they're getting closer to what they deserve now, 66, 67% of designated revenues. But that's the way this thing should work. And, you have to, the programs themselves have to say, let's do this. The problem they're going to run into is you've got 50 programs like Tennessee. The ones I mentioned, SMU, Texas, Ohio State, Michigan, the bluest of blue bloods, the capitalized the ultra-rich programs where money is no object. Okay, separate them out. Those programs, money is no object. Everyone else, it's an object. You're going to have to get them on board because right now they have a built-in advantage. They can sit back and say, man, I'm sorry you lost that guy. I'm sorry you couldn't afford him. We'll take him. No problem here. So I don't know if you can collectively get them together. But sooner or later, collectively, the two sides have to fight. Sooner or later, one side has to call out the other. One side has to throw the hammer down. Sooner or later, somebody has to call the bluff. Sooner or later, both sides need to organize and figure it out. I don't think they will. I don't trust that industry at all, nor should you. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, it's because they all have different agendas. In the end, the NFL, the agenda's the same. We play better, we put on a better show, you make more money. We have bigger TV contracts, that generates more for you. They meet in the middle. They meet with their own incentives. Their greed meets eye to eye. This is an industry, a slimy, chaotic, dumbed down industry that doesn't see anything eye to eye. So either this guy and this move, as Paul Feinbaum said, I'm not maybe you believe him, and it's well thought out. This is the deal, the moment that just shocks this industry to the core. Blue blood program, star player, just really a punch in the nose all the way around. There's that. You think this is that moment that they have to figure it out? I don't think so. I don't. I think a lot of it depends on how this shakes out. Because if somebody, one of the ultra rich that's capitalized that I just mentioned, gives him that money, the SEC is going to be pissed for good reason. Sooner or later, the 50 that aren't the ultra rich that are capitalized have to get mad at the 6 that are ultra capitalized, that have all the money, and say, listen, that's nice. You live in a world, you live in a cul-de-sac, we can't even get in the gate. But this is not sustainable. They're going to have to turn on their own, and the players and ownership, I guess that's what we have to say now, since college doesn't matter, since these are not universities anymore, they're just Football Inc., done in a terrible way. But sooner or later, they have to say, we'll fight you over this and we'll fight you over that. And they have to actually be on each other's side and then go fight it out and then come up with some terms and agreements. There's no other way to move it forward. Otherwise, chaos like this just reigns supreme, which I suspect it will. Your thoughts?